Um,
There you
oh,
go.
Bhagavati's already started the recording. Look at that. Hey, she's
Hello.
all right now. Let me see if I can record on the cloud at the same time you're doing that. I think I am. Yes, I am. So great. Well, we've got some new technical things that we're working on. Rangavati and I just discovered it's easier than we thought the first time in history. Everything else is so hard to do. So, but tonight we're starting a brand new discussion on this series that I think we're going to end up calling the avatars. The great personalities and histories of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Purana. And we want to have some books, smaller books, put out for each avatar so that people can avail themselves of this knowledge a little easier. And sometimes, if you look at all 12 cantos and you see these voluminous books, it can be difficult to want to pick them up and go inside. But if you had a smaller book that told you about the life and times of Lord Kapila, for an example, or Varaha, for an example, and we'll get to Ram, we'll get to everybody as we go through this series called the Avatars, Great Personalities and Histories from Srimad Bhagavatam. So we're very, very happy to have you with us. Hey, Nishringalila, Haribo.
Hare
Nice
Krishna,
to have
Prabhuji.
you. Very good to see you tonight.
This is
So we're going to be studying from chapter 21, talks between Manu and Kardama Muni. So if you'll look that up, that would get us a good start. And this should be a fun read. We're going to be understanding who is the mother and father of Kapila. So this is why we've started on chapter 21. And if you guys don't mind, I'll go ahead and do my pranams and then we'll start reading right away. Okay? Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devim Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacharishtarani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pravachananda Shidvati Gadadhar Swasti Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai. So this would be chapter 21, talks between Manu and Kardama Muni. And if you don't mind, I think I'll go ahead and read the first 10 or 15. That's okay with you guys. Text 1. The Vidura said, the line of Swayambhava Manu was most esteemed. O worshipful sage, I beg you, give me an account of this race whose progeny multiplied through sexual intercourse. The two great sons of Swayambhuva Manu, Priyavrata and Uttanapad, ruled the world, consisting of 7 islands, just according to religious principles. O holy Brahman, O sinless one, you have spoken of his daughter, known by the name of Devahuti, as the wife of the sage Kardama, the lord of created beings. How many offsprings did that great yogi beget through the princess, who was endowed with 8-fold perfection in the yoga principles? Oh, pray tell me this, for I am eager to hear it. O holy sage, tell me how the worshipful Ruchi and Daksha, the son of Brahma, generated children after securing as their wives the other 2 daughters of Swayambhuva Manu. The great sage Maitreya replied, commanded by Lord Brahma to beget children in these worlds, the worshipful Kardama Muni practiced penance on the bank of the river Saraswati for a period of 10,000 years. During that period of penance, the sage Kardam, by worshiping through devotional service and trance, propitiated the personality of Godhead, who is the quick bestower of all blessings upon those who flee to him for protection. Then in the Satya Yuga, the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead, being pleased, showed himself to that Kardama Muni and displayed his transcendental form, which can be understood only through the Vedas. Kardama Muni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is free from material contamination. In his eternal form, effulgent like the sun, wearing a garland of white lotuses and water lilies. The Lord was clad in spotless yellow silk, and his lotus face was fringed with slick, dark locks of curly hair. Adorned with a crown and earrings, he held his characteristic conch, disc, and mace in 3 of his hands, and a white lily in the 4th. He glanced about in a happy, smiling mood, whose sight captivates the hearts of all devotees. A golden streak on his chest, the famous Kaustubha gem suspended from his neck. He stood in the air with his lotus feet placed on the shoulders of Garuda, his winged carrier. When Kardama Muni actually realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person, he was greatly satisfied because his transcendental desire was fulfilled. He fell on the ground with his head bowed to offer obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord, his heart naturally full of love of God. With folded hands, he satisfied the Lord with prayers. So would anybody like to start reading the prayers of Kardama Muni to the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
I can.
Go for it. Text 13.
Okay, got it. The great sage Kardama said, O supreme worshipful Lord, my power of sight is now fulfilled. Having attained the greatest perfection of the sight of you, who are the reservoir of all existences. Through many successive bursts of deep meditation, advanced yogis aspire to see your transcendental form. Your lotus feet are the true vessel to take one across the ocean of mundane nations. Only persons deprived of their intelligence by the spell of deluding energy will worship those feet with a view to attain the trivial and momentary pleasures of the senses, which even persons rotting in hell can attain. Wow. However, O my Lord, you are so kind that you can bestow mercy even upon them. Therefore, desiring to marry a girl of like disposition, who may prove to be a veritable cow of plenty in my married life, to satisfy my lustful desires, I too have sought the shelter of your lotus feet, which are the source of everything, for you are like a desire tree. O my Lord, you are the master and leader of all living entities. Under your direction, all conditioned souls, as if bound by rope, are constantly engaged in satisfying their desires. Following them, O embodiment of religion, I also bear obligations for you for eternal time. However, persons who have given up stereotyped worldly affairs and the beastly followers of these affairs, who have taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet by drinking the intoxicating nectar of your qualities and activities and discussions with one another, can be free from the primary nascence of the material body. Shall I continue?
You may do a few more if you'd like. Yeah, sure.
Sure, of course. If I'm not offending anyone. Your wheel, which has 3 naves, rotates around the axis of the imperishable Brahman. It has 13 spokes, 360 joints, 6 rims, and numberless leaves carved upon it. Though its revolution cuts short the lifespan of the entire creation, this wheel of tremendous velocity cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees of the Lord. My dear Lord, you alone create the universes. O personality of Godhead, desiring to create these universes, you create them, maintain them, and they can wind them up with your own energies, which are under the control of your second energy called Yoga Maya. Just as a spider creates a cobweb by its own energy and again winds it up. My dear Lord, although it's not your desire, you manifestate this creation of gross and subtle elements just for our sensual satisfaction. Let your causeless mercy be upon us, for you have appeared before us in your eternal form, adorned with the splendid wreath of Tulasi leaves. I'll stop.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That was very good. Very good reading. Who would like to be next?
I can read some.
Very nice.
We're on 21, correct?
21.
I continuously offer my respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. of which it is worthy to take shelter, because you shower all benediction on the insignificant, to give all living entities detachment from recruitive activity by realizing you. You have expanded these material worlds by your own energy.
Maitreya resumed.
Maitreya resumed, sincerely enrolled in these words, Lord Vishnu, shining very beautifully on the shoulders of Garuda, replied with the words as sweet as nectar. His eyebrows moved gracefully as he looked at the sage with a smile full of affection. Supreme Lord said, having come to know what is in your mind, I have already arranged for that for which you have worshipped me well through your mental and sensory distance. The Lord continued, my dear Ritu, O Lord of the living entities, O leader of living entities, for those who serve me in devotion by worshiping me, especially persons like you, who have given up everything unto me, there is never a question of frustration. The Emperor Swayambhuva Muni Anu, the son of Lord Brahma, who is well known for his righteous acts, has his seat in Brahmavarta and rules over the earth, the seven oceans. The day after tomorrow, Lord Brahma, that celebrated emperor who is expert in religious activities, will come here with his queen, Satarupa, wishing to see you. He has a grown-up daughter whose eyes are black. She is ready for marriage, and she has good character and all good qualities. He is also searching for a good husband. My dear sir, her parents will come to see you, who are exactly suitable for her, just to deliver their daughter as your wife. That princess, O holy sage, will be just the type you have been thinking of in your heart for all these long years. She will soon be yours and will serve you with your heart's content. She will bring forth 9 daughters from the seed sown in her by you, and through the daughters you beget, the sages will duly beget children. With your heart cleansed by properly carrying out my command, resigning to me the fruits of all your acts, you will finally attain me. Showing compassion to all living entities, you will attain self-realization. Giving assurance of safety to all, you will perceive your own self as well as all the universes in me and myself in you. O great sage, I shall manifest my own planetary portion to your wife, Devahuti, along with your 9 daughters, and I shall instruct her in the system of philosophy that deals with the ultimate principles or categories. Out there?
That's fine. Yeah, and who would like to pick up on text 33?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Nice, thank you.
Maitreya went on, thus having spoken to Kadamba Muni, the Lord who reveals himself only when the senses are in Krishna consciousness, departed from that lake called Bindu Sarovara, which was encircled by the river Saraswati. While the sage stood looking on, the Lord left by the pathway leading to Vaikuntha, the path extolled by all great liberated souls. The sage stood listening as the Haman forming the basis of the Samaveda were vibrated by the flapping wings of the Lord's carrier Garuda. Then after the departure of the Lord, the worshipful sage Kadamba stayed on the bank of Bindu Sarovara, awaiting the time of which the Lord had spoken. Swayambhu Manu, with his wife, mounted his chariot, which was decorated with the golden ornaments. Placing his daughter on it with them, he began traveling all over the earth. O Vidura, they reached the hermitage of the sage, who had just completed his vows of austerity on the very day foretold by the Lord. The holy lake Bindu Sarovara, flooded by the waters of the river Saraswati, was resorted to by hosts of eminent sages. Its holy water was not only auspicious, but as sweet as nectar. It was called Bindu Sarovara because drops of tears had fallen there from the eyes of the Lord, who was overwhelmed by the extreme compassion for the sage who had sought his protection. The shore of the lake was surrounded by clusters of poised trees and creepers, rich in fruits and flowers of all seasons, that afforded shelter to pious animals and birds, which uttered various cries. It was adorned by the beauty of groves of forest trees. The area resounded with the notes of overjoyed birds. Intoxicated bees wandered there. Intoxicated peacocks proudly danced, and merry cooks called one another. Lake Bindu Sarovara was adorned by the flowering trees such as Kadamba, Champaka, Ashoka, Karanja, Bakula, Asana, Kunda, Mandara, Putaja, and young mango trees. The air was filled with the pleasing notes of Karandava, ducks, flowers, swans, ospreys, waterfalls, cranes, chakravakas, and chakoras. Its shores, abundant with the deer, boars, porcupines, gavayas, elephants, baboons, lions, monkeys, mongoose, and musk deer. Entering the most sacred spot with his daughter and going near the sage, the first monarch, Swayambhu Manu, saw the sage sitting in his hermitage, having just propitiated the sacred fire by pouring oblations into it. His body shone most brilliantly. Though he had engaged in austere penance for a long time, he was not emaciated, for the Lord had cast his affectionate sidelong glance upon him, and he had also heard the nectar flowing from the moon-like words of the Lord. The sage was tall, his eyes were large, like the petals of a lotus, and he had matted locks on his head. He was clad in rags. Swayambhu Manu approached and saw him to be somewhat soiled, like an unpolished gem. Can I stop, Prabhuji? Or
It's up to you. Let's see. I think we only have in this chapter another 6 verses. Why don't you finish the next 6 verses to the end of this chapter?
sure, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Seeing that the monarch had come to his hermitage and was bowing before him, the sage greeted him with benediction and received him with due honor. After receiving the sage's attention, the king sat down and was silent. Recalling the instructions of the Lord, Kardama then spoke to the king as follows, delighting him with his sweet accents. The tour you have undertaken, O Lord, is surely intended to protect the virtuous and kill the demons, since you embody the protecting energy of Sri Hari. You assume, when necessary, the part of the sun god, the moon god, Agni, the god fire, Indra, the lord of paradise, Vayu, the wind god, Yama, the god of punishment, Dharma, the god of piety, and Varuna, the god of presiding over the water. All the obeisances to you. who are none other than Lord Vishnu. If you did not mount your victorious jewel chariot, whose mere presence threatens culprits, if you did not produce fierce sounds by the twanging of your bow, and if you did not roam about the world like the brilliant sun, leading the huge army whose trampling feet cause the globe of the earth to tremble, then all the moral laws governing the varnas and ashramas created by the Lord himself would be broken by the rogues and rascals. If you gave up all thought of the world's situation, unrighteousness would flourish, for men who hanker only after money would be unopposed. Such miscreants would attack, and the world would perish. In spite of all this, I ask you, O valiant king, the purpose for which you have come here, whatever it may be, we shall carry it out without reservation.
Thank you. That was very nice. Thank you for that. We appreciate that. Now we're going to call on Rangavati to start out chapter 22, the marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahuti.
Sri Maitreya said, after describing the greatness of the emperor's manifold qualities and activities, the sage became silent. And the emperor, feeling modesty, addressed him as follows. Manu replied, to expand himself in Vedic knowledge, Lord Brahma, the personified Veda, from his face created you, the Brahmanas, who are full of austerity, knowledge, and mystic power, and are averse to sense gratification. For the protection of the Brahmanas, the thousand-legged Supreme Being created us, the Kshatriyas, from his 1,000 arms. Hence the Brahmanas are said to be his heart, and the Kshatriyas his arms. This is why the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas protect each other as well as themselves, and the Lord himself, who is both the cause and effect and is yet immutable, protects them through each other. Now I have resolved all my doubts simply by meeting you, for your lordship has very kindly and clearly explained the duty of a king who desires to protect his subjects. It is my good fortune that I've been able to see you, for you cannot easily be seen by persons who have not subdued their mind or controlled their senses. I am in the more fortunate to have touched with my head the blessed dust of your feet. I have fortunately been instructed by you, and thus great favor has been bestowed upon me. I thank God that I've listened with open ears to your pure words. O great sage, graciously be pleased to listen to the prayer of my humble self, for my mind is troubled by affection for my daughter. My daughter is the sister of Priyavrata and Uttanapad. She is seeking a suitable husband in terms of age, character, and good qualities. The moment she heard from the sage Narada of your noble character, learning, beautiful appearance, youth, and other virtues, she fixed her mind upon you. Therefore, please accept her, O chief of the Brahmanas, for I offer her with faith, and she is in every respect fit to be your wife and take charge of your household duties. To deny an offering that has come of itself is not commendable, even for one absolutely free from all attachment, much less one addicted to sense pleasure. One who rejects an offering that comes from its own accord, but later begs a boon from a miser, thus loses his widespread reputation, and his pride is humbled by the neglectful behavior of others. Swayambhuva Manu continued, O wise man, I heard that you were prepared to marry. Please accept her hand, which is being offered to you by me, since you have not taken a vow of perpetual celibacy. The great sage replied, certainly, I have a desire to marry, and your daughter has not yet married or given her word to anyone. Therefore, our marriage, according to the Vedic system, can take place. Let your daughter's desire for marriage, which is recognized in the Vedic scriptures, be fulfilled. Who would not accept her hand? She is so beautiful that by her bodily luster alone she excels the beauty of her ornaments. I have heard that Vishvasu, the great Gandharva, his mind stupefied with infatuation, fell from his airplane after seeing your daughter playing with the ball on the roof of the palace. For she was indeed beautiful, with her tinkling ankle bells and her eyes moving to and fro. What wise man would not welcome her, the very ornament of womanhood, the beloved daughter of Swayambhuva Manu and sister of Uttanapad? Those who have not worshipped the gracious feet of the goddess of fortune cannot even perceive her, yet she has come of her own accord to seek my hand. Would you like me to continue?
There's another 20 verses left in this chapter. So if you want to read a few more, you're certainly welcome to do that.
Okay. Therefore, I shall accept this chaste girl as my wife on the condition that after she bears semen from my body, I shall accept the life of devotional service accepted by the most perfect human beings. That process was described by Lord Vishnu. It is free from envy. The highest authority for me is the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom this wonderful creation emanates, and in whom its sustenance and dissolution rest. He is the origin of the Prajapatis, the personalities meant to produce living entities in this world. Sri Maitreya said, O great warrior, Vidura, the sage Kardama, said this much only, and then became silent, thinking of his worshipable Lord Vishnu, who has a lotus on his navel. As he silently smiled, his face captured the mind of Devahuti, who began to meditate upon the great sage. Will that be okay?
Yeah, it's very nice. Thank you for that. This is a wonderful story. We're going to go back over a little bit of this in a minute. And I'll read the last ones if that's okay. I don't think there's anybody else here. After having unmistakably known the decision of the queen, as well as that of Devahuti, the emperor most gladly gave his daughter to the sage, whose host of virtues were equaled by hers. Empress Satarupa lovingly gave most valuable presents suitable for the occasion, such as jewelry, clothes, and household articles in dowry to the bride and bridegroom. Thus relieved of his responsibility by handing over his daughter to a suitable man, Swayambhuva Manu, his mind agitated by feelings of separation, embraced his affectionate daughter with both arms. The emperor was unable to bear the separation of his daughter. Therefore, tears poured from his eyes again and again, drenching his daughter's head as he cried, "My dear mother, my dear daughter." After asking and obtaining the great sage's permission to leave, the monarch mounted his chariot with his wife and started for his capital, followed by his retinue. Along the way, he saw the prosperity of the tranquil seers, beautiful hermitage on both the charming banks of the Saraswati, the river so agreeable to saintly persons. Overjoyed to know of his arrival, his subjects came forth from Brahmavarta to greet their returning lord with songs, prayers, and musical instruments. The city of Barhismati, rich in all kinds of wealth, was so called because Lord Vishnu's hair dropped there from his body when he manifested himself as Lord Boar. As he shook his body, this very hair fell and turned into blades of evergreen kusha grass and kasha, another kind of grass used for mats, by means of which the sages worshiped Lord Vishnu after defeating the demons who had interfered with the performances of their sacrifice. Manu spread a seat of kushas and kashas and worshiped the Lord, personality of Godhead, by whose grace he had obtained the rule of the terrestrial globe. Having entered the city of Barhishmati, in which he had previously lived, Manu entered his palace, which was filled with an atmosphere that eradicated the three miseries of material existence. Emperor Swayambhuva Manu enjoyed life with his wife and subjects and fulfilled his desires without being disturbed by unwanted principles contrary to the process of religion. Celestial musicians and their wives sang in chorus about the pure reputation of the emperor. And early in the morning, every day, he used to listen to the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a loving heart. Thus, Swayambhuva Manu was a saintly king. Although absorbed in material happiness, he was not dragged to the lowest grade of life, for he always enjoyed his material happiness in a Krishna-conscious environment. Consequently, although his duration of life gradually came to an end, his long life, consisting of a Manvantara era, was not spent in vain, since he ever engaged in hearing, contemplating, writing down, and chanting the pastimes of the Lord. He passed his time, which lasted 71 cycles of 4 ages, or 71 times 4,320,000 years, always thinking of Vasudeva and always engaged in matters regarding Vasudeva. Thus, he transcended the 3 destinations. Mind and other men and living creatures. In reply to questions asked by certain sages, he, Swayambhuva Manu, out of compassion for all living entities, taught the diverse sacred duties of men in general and the different varnas and ashrams. I have spoken to you of the wonderful character of Swayambhuva Manu, the original king, whose reputation is worthy of description. Please hear as I speak of the flourishing of his daughter, Devahuti. So those are 2 chapters that are going to set us up to be able to understand the mother and father of God in this incarnation, Kapila. So is there anybody that has any questions right off the bat, or any illuminations or anything that stands out in your mind you'd like to discuss just briefly? I mean, it's an amazing story. This is early in the universe. This is where the Prajapatis were told to expand, the living entities. We know that the 4 Kumaras, they were instructed to expand, and they said, no, we're going to stay with brahmacharya life. And they ended up having an opportunity and an audience with the Lord in Vaikuntha. And we just read that whole story with about Varaha. But now we're on the next incarnation. And this is beginning with chapter 21, talks between Manu and Kardama. So Kardama had all 8-fold mystic siddhas, right? Lahima, Mahima, Anima, all those where you can reach out, get anything, be smaller than the smallest. You can do anything you want to, basically. You have 8 mystic siddhas. You can multiply your body in different ways. And he exhibits all of those wonderful characteristics in this great story. And you'll see that in the next chapter upon the marriage of Kardama and Devahuti. So you'll see some of these great mystic powers that he used to create a situation for his progeny, who gave birth to so many great sages and saints throughout this entire story of the Bhagavad Purana. We'll hear more of it. So with those 8-fold mystic perfections, he actually was very, very powerful, very powerful. And but he did not exhibit that power, did he? He became emaciated from his austerities. And how long did his austerities last? Was it 1,000 years that he performed these austerities, right?
10,000 years.
10,000 years, that's correct, 10,000 years. So this all took place in the Satya Yuga. And so in the Satya Yuga, lifespan is 100,000 years for the human, right? Then in the next Yuga, which is normally Treta, that's going to be 10,000 years. And then in Dwapara Yuga, which is the Yuga before Kali, which is the one we're currently in, that you have a 1,000 year lifespan. And then in the Kali Yuga, because we've lost all of the actual nuances of religion, there are 4 legs of religion: mercy, cleanliness, what is it? Mercy, cleanliness, austerity, and truth. So those 3 are gone now. They left with each of the ensuing yugas. Satya Yuga is like the spring of mankind. Okay. Treta Yuga is like the summer. Dwapara is like the fall of mankind. And Kali is the age of winter, or the age of quarrel and hypocrisy as we know it. And in this age, even truth is being challenged. So, Nasreen, did you have a question?
My daughter has a question too.
Oh, your daughter has a good question. Oh, I can't wait to hear it. Please.
Yes, so we get 1,000 years of lifetime project.
We have what now? I'm sorry.
We have 1,000 years of life project.
No, 100.
100 years.
100.
So does it mean 100 days, 100 hours, or
No, 100 years.
100 years. 365 days, 24 hours a day for 1 year.
Thank
There
you.
you Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for that question. As a matter of fact, if you look back in previous chapters, the Srimad Bhagavatam was written down thousands of years ago. And there are calculations of time down to the very atom, atomic time, which is so precise and so perfect that nobody knows how they knew these things thousands of years ago. They supposedly didn't have advanced technology and instrumentation to understand these things. However, they fully understood the stars. They fully understood what's on the stars. They understood what's on the planets. They understood the demigods. They understood Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, the 3 presiding deities over this material universe. They understood all of these things. They were visited regularly by demigods that would come here again and again and again. So we didn't come from some nonsense darkness like we think we did, like the science is trying to say that we came from cavemen or monkeys. If we came from monkeys, why is there a monkey and human? Why don't we see the transition between monkey and human? We don't actually see that. They claim that it's some other creature or this or that, but we don't see that metamorphosis going on. So that evolution of the material body, okay, or adaptation of species, we can understand that we do adapt to our environment. But to evolve from one aquatic into this and to that and to that, we don't see that. That cannot be proved. So we know that the Lord came as Mahavishnu. This is all described in Srimad Bhagavatam. And then further came as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu in each universe. And then further came as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu in each universal atom, or in each atom, right? And also with all the living entities. So God is expanding himself over and over again, and he's sending Prajapatis to increase population in the material world. Manu, Swambhava Manu, Swambhuva Manu. I don't know why that's so hard for everybody to say tonight. We all lost that one a couple of times. Swayambhuva Manu. I've said it 1,000 times, it still escapes me. But he was the first monarch in the series of Manus. So his job was definitely in the procreation. So was Kardama's job for procreation. So Kardama had pleased the Lord completely on the banks of the Sarasvati River for 10,000 years, in serious austerity. And it said that even though he had been austere for so long, he didn't lose his bodily luster. He did not lose his bodily luster. The Lord had taken good care of Kardama Muni. So at some point, Lord Narayana appeared before him completely satisfied with his austerities. So it says, in the Satya Yuga, the supreme lotus-eyed personality of Godhead being pleased showed himself to that Kardama Muni and displayed his transcendental form, which can be understood only through the Vedas. Okay? Really, and nowhere else can you find a description of the personality of Godhead. And just so far in these first chapters, we've had multiple sightings of the Lord, if you will. With Narada Muni, we saw that. With all the demigods, we saw that when he came as Lord Bor, and now he's coming as Lord Kapila. And so we'll see that as well. But we see that the Lord can appear before his devotee after being well pleased. Once the Lord is well pleased, he can show himself before the devotee. And so because his eternal form, effulgent like the sun, wearing a garland of white lotus and water lilies, the Lord was clad in spotless yellow silk, and his lotus face was fringed with slick, dark locks of curly hair. That gives you a good picture of who we're worshiping, right? We understand God has Virata Rupa. He has this material form as well, and we can appreciate God in that form. If we go to the universal form of the Bhagavad Gita, we know that God is the light of the sun and the moon, and taste of the water. All of these things we can see God. There's no excuse for anyone who couldn't be God conscious. We can be God conscious. We can be God conscious simply by calling out his holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And when we do that, God comes, he dances upon our tongue. And God is very satisfied with you, even if you don't understand the words, even if you don't understand the whole philosophy. There's a benefit called a Gyata Sukriti. A Gyata Sukriti means even unknowing, we're serving the Lord and we're getting the benefit. It's just like if you go to the doctor and the doctor gives you a nice medicine, you don't have to understand how the medicine works. You simply take the medicine and you feel better. So it's not necessary that you understand the complete science. However, Bhagavatam gives us the complete science. And it is very, very scientific and very exacting and very consistent across over, 100,000 verses? So how many verses does Srimad Bhagavatam have? Do we know? I think it's 144,000. Is that correct?
18,000.
Oh, 18,000, right. 144 is the, Mahabharata. The Mahabharata. Yeah, I believe that's correct. Okay, so 18,000 verses here that describe very carefully and very clearly the avatars of God, what they come for, and why they're here. So Krishna, it says that when he appeared before Kardama, he already knew what he wanted, right? And he said that persons like you who have given everything will never be deterred by frustration, and there'll never be any question of frustration in his life. And here we find we're so frustrated, aren't we? Every time we turn around, we're frustrated. The material energy does not seem to be compliant with our will. So we become constantly frustrated. And here he says, "Oh, my Lord, you are the master and leader of all the living entities. Under your direction, all conditioned souls, as if bound by rope, are constantly engaged in satisfying their desires. Following them, O embodiment of religion, I also bear oblations for you who are eternal time." So everyone have so many unlimited desires. And if we allow those unlimited desires to affect us and actually in a mode of passion sense, then we're constantly seeking to take the sense and apply it to its object. And so we live our whole lives simply running mad after, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And we see that that's what the whole world is involved in here. But that was not Swayambhuva Manu's approach to life. He was Krishna conscious in all situations. And he did that for an extremely long period of time. So we'll talk some more about that in just a second. But so Krishna, when he came, what did he do? When he came before Kardam, of course, Kardam gave some beautiful prayers in text 12 to 21 in chapter 21. I would recommend everybody read those prayers multiple times. That's text 12 to 21 in chapter 21. You can read those prayers over and over again because they will benefit you unlimitedly. But when he came to see him, he already knew what he wanted, and he foretold of Swayambhuva Manu's visit the day after tomorrow, is how he put it. So the day after tomorrow, he was going to come and ask Kardama Muni to accept his daughter's hands, who had all good qualities, just like Kardama Muni did. So, and then he told him, he said, and I will manifest my own plenary portion through your wife Devahuti. In other words, he will come as Devahuti's son. Okay, so he told him that, he foretold of that, and sure enough, the day after tomorrow, Swayambhuva Manu showed up, and it was very wonderful. But as Vishnu was leaving, he was on Garuda's back, right? And Garuda's flapping his wings, and the sound of those wings flapping was the vibration of the Samaveda. So the Samaveda is a very beautiful Veda which glorifies the Lord wonderfully. So if you haven't read Samaveda, that's going to be something you're going to want to look into. So he said that the king's tour, when Kardama addressed the king, I think this is pretty interesting. He said, certainly your tour of the world that brought you here was certainly to protect the innocent and to kill the miscreants, because you are the embodiment of the protecting energy of Sri Hari. So the king actually is the embodiment of the power of God in so many ways, right? And so in that situation, he acknowledged that and realized his position, which I thought was very wonderful. And he said, which I take this as a point that we can grapple with today, and that is, he said, if it weren't for the fierce twang of your bow, if it wasn't for the tumultuous sound of the armies, of your armies and their animals, and all of this traversing the globe, which causes the earth to literally tremble, if it weren't for setting a precedence to uphold the moral laws of Varna and Ashram, okay, the world would have been put into complete ruination. So what we see now that there are no Raja Rishis, there are no saintly kings anymore. There's only the Prabhupada said, making the best of a bad bargain. The best of a bad bargain means, what are our choices? Okay, so we have demons. Okay, so we get to choose from the what? The best of the demoniac pool? Is that what we're choosing from? We read last time all the qualities of a demon. And if we look at the qualities of a demon, then we can see if persons actually have those qualities or not, whether they're fit to govern us. But we don't apply these principles. We don't look at the quality of a person. We don't look at the quality of a person, it seems like now. And there's always one schism after the next, and one, just, what do they call them? Scandal after the next. I mean, that's all we hear. What's the next scandal? Right? So our problem is that the world, because we don't have religious kings, there is no law, literally. And democracy makes up their own laws every day. They don't take into consideration the laws of God. Do they? No. They've taken the 10 Commandments out of the courthouses. They don't want that to be part of their judgment call. They're allowing all types of liberal, rational behavior because the people want it. But if your child is a small child that doesn't know any better and it says, oh, Dad, I want to touch the fire, would you allow the child to touch the fire? No, because the fire will burn. So the idea is that the king's job is to keep people in line with morality, to keep us headed back home, back towards the spiritual sky. And in the Vedic system, Varna and Ashram are the way to do that. The Varnas are natural divisions of persons in the material world who are either laborers that work for everyone else, or they're Vaishyas who feed us as farmers and merchants, or they're Kshatriyas who are warriors administrative, who are ready to protect us. And then the head of society is the Brahmin. The Brahmin is designed to give instruction because he is following in a sampradaya. Tadvidi pranipratena, pariprashnena sevya, upadekshanti tegena, yanina statvadarshina. We don't approach the spiritual master for knowledge. We're not humble. We don't give service to the saints. We don't do that. And therefore, they don't impart knowledge to us because we're not available to them. We're not humble. One of the qualities of hearing Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, is humility. Krishna said, I speak this imperishable science of yoga to you because you are my friend. You're not envious of me. So if we're envious of God, we're not going to know God. Krishna says, I don't reveal myself to the foolish miscreants. I won't reveal myself to them. So, but here he's revealed himself to this pure devotee, Kardama Muni. And Kardama Muni has duly welcomed this wonderful king, Swayambhuva Manu, who has come to ask him to take his daughter's hand in marriage. Obviously he's going to accept in a wonderful way. So in the next chapter, which is chapter 22, the marriage of Kardama and Devahuti. So he says in this chapter, if we go to the next chapter quickly, this is a very, very wonderful statement that he made in text 6 and 7. He said, it is my good fortune that I have been able to see you, for you cannot be easily seen by persons who have not subdued the mind or controlled the senses. I am all the more fortunate to have touched with my head the blessed dust of your feet. I have fortunately been instructed by you, and thus great favor has been bestowed upon me. I thank God that I have listened with open ears to your pure words. We should all be thanking God that we're here tonight and listening with open ears to the pure words that Krishna or Vishnu has spoken to Kardama, and that the discourse between Swayambhuva Manu and Kardama Muni are taking place. So wonderful. These are some of the founders of this universe that we're living in, and the progenitors of this universe. So he did ask the Lord, he said, yes, he did tell the king, Swayambhuva Manu, he told him, he said, yes, I'll take her hand. Who wouldn't? I mean, she's actually the embodiment of, womanhood. She is virtually the decoration of womanhood. She outshines her ornaments, right? One demigod's flying along in his vimana, and he looks down and sees her playing with a ball on the roof of the palace, and he falls from his aircraft, crashes his skull, right? It's kind of like what we see today, some of these car wrecks that are happening. The pretty girl's walking down the street and the guy's looking, and bam, there it is. I guess that happened thousands and millions of years ago as well. So, but in the town where he was, he said, I will definitely take her as my wife, but one condition. After she bears semen from my body, then I shall take sannyas and live the life of a renunciant. So this story is going to get really good, y'all. It's getting ready to get pretty dramatic here in the next couple of chapters. You're going to see how Devahuti addressed Kardam after he took sannyas, and also how she was impregnated with so many children, and also some of the great gifts that he offered her when she came to him in a humble way and asked for children, and also a place, a house to raise the family. So normally when a wife asks the husband for a house, it can be fairly meager at first, right? Normally. But Kardama Muni created a 7-story skyscraper vimana with thousands of maidservants. So we're going to get there. I'm not going to rob you of the punchline or anything right now, but just try to understand that his mystic siddhas allowed him to produce these things for her, which even astonished himself, it says later. He was even astonished. So when Swayambhuva Manu went back to Barhishmati, his town, everybody came out and they're singing, they're glad to have their monarch back. But it tells that the town was rich because Lord Boar had taken up that form and converted himself from Vishnu to the form of the boar. And as he was doing that, hairs fell from his body in Barhishmati, and that turned to this very, very auspicious form of grass known as Kusha and Kasha grass, which all the sages sit and meditate on in their samadhi state. So what stands out in my mind more than anything about these two chapters is that the life of devotion that lasted 71 times 4,320,000 years. So that's a long time, right? And he transcended the 3 destinations. Did we know what those 3 destinations are? Right? What do we got? We got higher planetary systems, the life of a demigod. We got this middle planetary system, human life. And then we have lower planetary systems for animal life and suffering in hellish conditions, right? So he transcended all 3 of those destinations. And his palaces were designed to eliminate the 3-fold miseries, weren't they? So that was very, very nice. You go to his palace, everything is very, very laid out nicely so that it minimizes any distraction on his devotional mood. So our goal then would be to follow in the footsteps and continue teaching this Varna Ashram system and this life of devotional service. So if we look at what Krishna recommends in this life of devotional service, and I've got a lot of things I could add to this, but I do want to add this much to it at least. If you look at the chapter in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, Attaining the Supreme, really wonderful chapter. Krishna says in text 5, and whosoever at the end of his life, quits his body, remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there can be no doubt. Then he says, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Therefore, Arjuna, he says, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duties of fighting. So here Swayambhuva Manu had been living these millions of years and carrying out his duties to Vasudeva. He was always engaged in activities revolving around Vasudeva. He didn't have a separate life. It wasn't like, okay, well, I do this and then I'll go to church for an hour. His life was church. He was the embodiment of devotional service. So he says, so Krishna says, with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain to me without a doubt. He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of God, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, O Partha, is sure to reach me. So, and then he goes on and he says, you can meditate on me in all these different ways. One, you meditate on me as the oldest, as the one who knows everything, as the one who is the controller, who's smaller than the smallest, who's the maintainer of everything, who's beyond any material conception, who's inconceivable, but is always a person. Always a person. He is luminous like the sun and is transcendental beyond its material nature. So this is the idea of the Srimad Bhagavatam, is to help us know God, to meditate on God, to see God as a person. Okay? I mean, there are levels of understanding of God, right? Impersonal understanding is one level. And these jnanis, they try their best to get to that place, thinking that it will bring them the ultimate satisfaction. However, because the soul cannot be inactive even for a moment, they fall from that platform because they require Sat-Chit, Ananda, and Vigraha. So they just can't settle for Sat. Right? It's like, I got 1 million here. Can you take that? Well, 1 million's pretty good, but how about 1 trillion? Right? So Krishna has it all. Why settle for less? So we want to know the beautiful form of the Lord that was described in the last reading that we did of Varaha as lapis lazuli. And this beautiful colors, just vibrant colors with like lightning flashing in them, and yellow silk garments and these garlands of flowers and all the weapons in the Lord's hand, his beautiful curling locks around his face. We can understand who God is, and we can fall in love with God through these depictions. And if we do, then we will be happy. And if we don't, we will not be happy. But Krishna is very clear in the Bhagavad Gita what he's looking for. He describes that. He tells everyone, Manmana Bhava Madbhakto. In other words, think of me, meditate on me, serve me. Bhaktyatvanandya Sakya. He talks about this. Only by undivided devotional service can he be understood. As he is standing before you and can be seen directly. So obviously Kardama had done a wonderful job of penance, and the Lord was obliging to come before him and appear before him in that way. And the beautiful prayers of Kardama will cause us all to weep again and again and again. So we're having a good time? Yes, we are. Are there any thoughts or questions you want to share?
I have a kind of a thought or something I'm curious about that has nothing to do with what we just read, if I can ask.
Sure.
Okay, because you just said, he who remembers me at the time of death, attains my abode without fail. I've often thought Because I'm 72, and I'm up there in age, and how does the soul, not how does the soul leave the body, but how does the soul travel if I'm fortunate enough to go to Vaikuntha? I mean, if it's billions and trillions and jillions of light years away, that we think by human calculations, how does it get there? And how does it know how to get there? If that's even a logical question.
Well, it is a good question, actually. I was just reading in the Odyssey stories where, and I don't know that I can give you the exact story, but I'd be happy to look it up and give it to you. But there are plenty of examples of souls who are going back to the spiritual sky. And they say that the Vishnu Dutas come in this beautiful chariot and they load up the devotee. And as the devotee is traveling back to the spiritual sky, all the demigods are showering flowers, beating doon-dooby drums, all this other stuff. And the devotee at that time he can look at the material world, and if he sees something he'd rather have, he can opt out. That's why it's so important that we understand that there's nothing in the material world that can actually satisfy the soul. The only thing that will actually satisfy the soul is reconnection in yoga, in pure, unalloyed, loving devotion with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna says, Yogi Nam api sarvesham, madkaten antaratmana shradavan bhajate yomam, same yuktat mato mataha. And of all yogis, he who abides in me with great faith, worshiping me with transcendental loving service, is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. There can't be any question what the Lord thinks is the highest of all. It's not impersonalism. It's not worshiping paganism or the material universe of Rata Rupa. It's not. It's not being a big jnani and, attaining to something like that. It's pure devotion of the Lord. That's the only thing that the Lord's actually attracted to. And how we get there, that you'll know when the time comes, Jack Krishna, because it's coming for you. You'll see. The Lord's taking you home because of your life of devotional service. So there are many different ways, but the Vishnu Dutas will come for you, and they will protect you. And one time they asked Prabhupada, they said, Prabhupada, what if I'm just too sick? And I can't remember you at the time of death. Prabhupada said, Krishna won't forget you. He will remember you and your work. So we want to go to Krishna because Krishna, aham sarvasya prabhavo, matak sarvam pravartate. He is the source of all spiritual and material worlds. If you like birth, death, old age, and disease, stick around. There's plenty of it to go around for everybody here. But if you see yourself as being frustrated with this repeated situation of bhoga-tyaga, where we try to enjoy and then become sick of the enjoyment and renounce it, and then we try it again, and then we renounce it, try it again, renounce it again, try it again. There's no end to that. And there's no actual solution to that, not in the material world. Because you can apply the objects of the senses to the sense. You can rub it on the sense. And as soon as that connection is broken, the pleasure's gone. Matra sparsasti konteya, satosna sukha dukkha da. We don't care about happiness and distress in the material world. Everybody's having happiness and distress in the material world. It's even said in this chapter that they're enjoying happiness and distress and sense gratification, even for those who are rotting in hell. We just read that you can even have sense gratification in the hellish worlds. So can that be our goal? No. Bhaktyatwana yaya sakya ahang evam bidorjuna yantum drastum chitatvena pravestum cha parantapra. Only by undivided devotional service. Krishna says, this is the only way you can enter into the mysteries of his understanding. He's very clear about it. Not hard. So we can go around, we can try to treat Krishna in different ways. We can try to manifest these mystic siddhas separately and then try to use them for our own benefits in this world. But the one thing is, we'll find out we'll be frustrated with all of that unless we do what Krishna says in 1866 in the Bhagavad Gita: abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender to me. I will protect you, do not fear. So this is Krishna's guarantee to each and every one of us, that we should surrender to the Lord. And by the way, how we get there, exactly how we get there, I mean, these descriptions are throughout the Ekadasi stories. These descriptions of devotees going back home, back to Godhead, are throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. You can find it throughout the Puranas. Oh yeah, there's plenty of information about how, or that the soul does transfer from the material world. And there are scientific and very, I would say, detailed explanations of yogis who are not devotees, but have a way of raising their life force through the chakra and out to the top of the head at exactly the right moment, on the right day, at the right hour, in the right circumstance to be transferred back to the spiritual world or to whatever planet they may desire. So there's plenty of stories about that. But what we do, Jai Krishna, particularly what we do, is we don't worry. We're like a small child. Krishna is the Father. We're like a small child. Whatever the Father wants for us is good for us. There's no question that the Father would never do anything to us that would harm us. Everything the Father does for his child is done for the benefit of the child. So the point is knowing that we surrender ourselves, and whatever the Lord wants to do with us, whatever he wants to do, he is free to do anything and everything, for he's our worshipful Lord unconditionally. What is that? Ashlishava padaratam panastimam darsan patam karotuva yatatava viditatu lampato matprananatas sa evanapara. Krishna, Chaitanya says in his Shishastika, that the Lord is free to do anything and everything. He's always our worshipful Lord unconditionally. So maybe it'll be a chariot. Who knows? Maybe it'll be a big Vimana you'll get to fly on, Jai Krishna. But if you keep reading Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll see how everybody else did it. You'll see how they were transferred. And in one of those ways, you'll also be transferred. You're talking, but we can't hear you. Rangavati, unclick, unmute. Whatever you say.
It's okay. I'm just laughing at how this dictation is coming out, because it just can't understand a lot of the words, and so it's trying to make up these words, and it is just so funny.
Well, that's fine. We'll I should give reference to where these are being quoted from. That way we'll just pull it right out of the Shastra. It can't understand Sanskrit. It can't understand Bengali.
I don't understand any of it.
No.
You'll get to fly on Jack Christian, but if you keep reading, stream that bag of down, you'll see how everybody else did it.
Jack, I want you to send him that version. Let him decipher it.
Yeah, that's right. He has to decipher it. All
right. Well, you guys are a blessing to me. Thank you so much for your time this evening. It was a wonderful discourse, and hope we all gain some good insights out of this. And next week we'll do 2 chapters, and it'll be the marriage of Devahuti and Kardamamuni. So it should be very beautiful for us. So please invite all your friends to come, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you on the next installment, Monday night, same time, same station. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for being here.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming.
Hare Krishna.